Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, it is our absolute pleasure to introduce Shelby and Jax. And of course, you know our on the spot reporter for Iron Caterpillar's interview, Shayna Levy. And so they are so sweet to invite us into their beautiful home and share their story about Jax and his recovery. So, Shelby, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on with you?
Okay, so on December 13th, 2017, I took Jax into the doctor for a cough. I was scared. I didn't want him to get pneumonia. It was almost Christmas time, and his heart rate was at about 200 to 250 beats a minute. And thank God his pediatrician caught it and immediately sent us the next morning to a pediatric cardiologist. He was diagnosed with dilated cardiomyopathy. They didn't know the source. They didn't know, really what was going on until we started doing further testing. We were told the day of that he was going to be in the hospital for a month, the ICU. And so we were immediately sent to Methodist Children's in the medical center, and that's kind of where everything unfolded. He, the next day, was in the cath lab getting surgery. He had developed an arrhythmia. They couldn't tell if it was a virus or exactly, he was completely non-symptomatic. He had been running at school and athletics, playing multiple baseball games a weekend, completely non-symptomatic except for his cough. And looking back now, there are a few things he probably realizes more as far as, maybe some shortness of breath, but nothing that would scream, heart failure. When they told us we were going to be in a month, he said, "No, I won't." I'm an overachiever, so he actually was out in 10 days. He has had no side effects of the medication. He continues just to be fairly non-symptomatic. He's now, almost fully recovered. His heart has shrunk over an inch and a half, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. At its biggest, it was 9.3 centimeters, and it's currently at 5.8,
yeah,
right? And it's supposed to be 5.5. Mm-hmm. So, looking at the timeline, what they're thinking is viral, just the way that it panned out and the way that he's healing. And so it's called myocarditis is what it is. It happens to so many people that never know, they never get the right care. A lot of hospitals are very, very, it's like the last thing they check for. And most of the time it's too late. So not only was it a learning experience for us, but for the doctors as well. They said, we don't normally see this.
In children or adults? Or?
Well, they don't normally see it. They see it most of the time post-mortem. So the fact that, we're here and he can tell his story, people just need to know that I was that parent that was like, oh, there had to be something else when you hear all these stories. And no, there doesn't. He was extremely active, extremely in shape, and ate well. And, we were actually laughing when we went to the pediatrician the first time because he hadn't been to the first sick visit in 4 years. And so, we just want to raise awareness to any and every parent that, like you go get a physical, really, they need to get, my kids are getting EKGs every year from this moment on. Because had we had a baseline for him before all this, especially, and they say it's very common in a lot of boys and boys that are super athletic, because, his doctor has said about kids being overcommitted and they're so overscheduled, and, their immune system gets run down, and then it literally opens the door for a virus to just take over. And so, we just want, we've even said if we get one kid to go to the doctor and they find out something's wrong for the rest of our life, like, that's enough. you know? So, I mean, he's on the road to recovery, thank God, but, you know, we just kind of want to share his story so parents know, you know, especially moms, like, trust your mom gut. Because that day I kept him home and I said, you know what, that cough. And so just trust your mom gut, you know. It's better to go and nothing be wrong than, and especially if they're in sports, starting, I would say at like 11 years old, start getting them an EKG every year. You might be out of pocket $100, $150, but I'm telling you right now, especially when boys start going through puberty, which is different for everybody, that's when it seems to hormones change and things change and their bodies change, and you know, so it really does, it's very, very, very important. Very important.
So what advice would you give to boys your age going through that?
Well, just if you feel anything, to say something. Don't try to push through if you feel that something's really wrong. Like that day, I really did kind of feel like I was just going down.
Like out of breath, or?
Yeah, like I just felt like I couldn't move. I just couldn't stand up. I just felt awful.
Well, you were mad at me because I wouldn't get you another muffin from Starbucks. But like his heart was beating so fast, but she said, do you feel like your heart's racing? And he's like, no. But like, I think hindsight's 20/20, right? Like now he looks back and maybe those were things he just, you know, kind of brushed off, and now he's really learned how to like listen to his body, you know? And so, yeah, I think that's great advice, especially athletes. They're pushed so hard in all these select sports and all this stuff. Like you've got, if they're gonna be that involved and physically strained on a daily basis, they've got you. I mean, your heart's the most important thing. Like you can't live without it. So you have to make sure that they're getting a proper physical and that, you know, a thorough physical and a heart screen. I mean, it's so important. It is so important. Don't you think?
Yeah.
What do you remember about that day?
It just felt like it was a dream. I didn't feel like that happened. Like it literally went from me just having a cough to heart surgery in a day.
Yeah. He was so tough, though. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Didn't hurt?
No.
Wasn't painful?
Well, I mean, I couldn't walk for a few days, but besides that, nothing really.
So how would you describe how you were feeling emotionally?
Oh, like everything was out of whack. Like I felt just broken, pretty much. I couldn't comprehend anything.
So was it scary?
Yes.
What was the scariest thing?
Probably heart surgery. Because I really didn't know what was going
He had
on.
never had surgery.
Never had any
I'd
surgery?
never even
Never.
been to the hospital, really.
No cavities, nothing?
No.
That's good.
So what exactly like is the virus that you got?
I really don't know.
They don't really know. Like, because of the way it attacks your heart and because of the way it, like kind of like the life cycle of the virus, when he went into the hospital, he tested negative for everything except for rhinovirus, which is just a cold. Now, can rhinovirus cause myocarditis? Yeah, I mean, it has happened, you know, but the day before he went in the hospital when I took him to the pediatrician, I had taken him 2 weeks prior to that. So this was when they found the heart situation, that was our second visit. The first time he had just a croupy cough. I mean, technically he can't have croup because he's 12, but that's the virus that he had was croup. So they did the normal regimen for croup. He had like a barky cough and they put him on steroids and then they put him on an inhaler for when he was in athletics because they run a lot in athletics in middle school. And so I believe, I'm not a doctor, but I believe that probably 2 weeks prior to that first doctor visit, you know, so like end of October, beginning of November, that was probably when, you know, maybe he caught a virus. It kind of went, you know how viruses will kind of pull back and then, you know, and so I think that is probably the start of, because I believe it's 90 days after the virus, 60 to 90 days is when the heart failure can start, after the virus attacks the heart, I believe. So, I mean, just the time frame, you know, they're like, we're never going to know for sure. I do know that this child, one of the things they thought was maybe he had an arrhythmia for quite some time, but there was just no way. There's no way. I mean, you could hear his arrhythmia with a stethoscope. And so I just, you know, my mom gut just says, you know, there's just no way that was the case. It was definitely a virus that, you know, they call it the perfect storm. With the steroids, it lowers your immune system. The inhaler had steroids. He was sick. He was run down. You know, all of that. You know, he had started middle school. That's overwhelming in itself, the middle school. And so, you know, I mean, thank God for our pediatrician, because she's the one that, Megan Guerra.
So you couldn't have prevented it in any way. There's nothing anybody did wrong. You couldn't have prevented it.
No.
You did everything right.
Yeah. And there are people who get it and you don't even know. Like a very mild case. And you know, it's, to me, when I started researching it and hearing, I heard a lot of people's stories. And I feel like flu season is when, you know, that when weather starts changing, if the flu comes around, cough, allergies, all that stuff, is when it seems to me, and I'm sure there's more cases that say that it's not that, but that's to me when it seems like it really affects, you know, healthy kids that don't have any pre-existing conditions or anything like that. So,
But you're back playing sports?
Kinda.
he goes to practice.
I can't play yet.
He's not playing in games. The doctor said, so
Maybe my next visit.
yeah, that's what we're hoping for. So everyone pray. May 11th, I think, is your next visit. Yeah. But I also think that, you know, you have to be an advocate for your child as a mom. And you have to really, I mean, I know everybody knows their own kids, but nothing is more important than their health. And nowadays, it's competitive, and grades, it's competitive, and sports, and all those things. And, you know, they're not going to be able to perform at optimum health if they're not being taken care of properly. And so just always trust your mom gut. That's all I have to say about that. Because I did. Thank God.
Good thing.
So what did your friends do, like when you were in the hospital?
Well, some of them didn't know I was in the hospital for a while, but they were all really supportive and had my back during all this.
Lots of texts
Yeah.
that I got to answer at night. It was so fun. Because he was asleep and I was on his phone.
Did you tell them right away, or did you like?
Well, it was kind of hard because there was so much going on. You were kind of like my manager.
I was. I was his manager. We had a mom that he's good friends with that's on our baseball team. Natalie. She was really like, she had worked as a nurse in a cardiac unit, so when I spoke to her, she knew what I was talking about. And she was our lifeline, you know, minus family and stuff. But she was our lifeline to friends because she had kids at the middle school and the elementary school, and they made him posters and got him gift cards. I mean, it was amazing. Our little community here in Timberwood is unbelievable. Like, she kept asking me, what can we do? And I was like, prayers, prayers, prayers. And then finally she's like, okay, everyone's asking me. We're praying. And I'm like, okay, take food to my house, because I knew the other two were here. My husband was doing the whole mom and dad thing. And I knew that, you know, just a nice warm meal would be so helpful. And it was, and they were great. His friends would stop by and, is Jax here? No, he's still at the hospital. And they would bring stuffed animals and posters, and they were amazing. They were really amazing.
So if you had to say 3 things that helped you get through this, what would you say?
Probably family and friends, and just me trying to get out of there as fast as I could.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you all so much. We just
Yes,
appreciate you sharing
absolutely.
your story, and just are so happy that you're doing well. So we will definitely keep in touch, and thanks for flying forward with Jax.